Welcome back. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show Expresso on SABC3, Medical Tuesday as we call it. And this morning, quite a sensational topic, if you will. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night and your arm has completely lost feeling and you start freaking out because what's going on? There's a lump of meat hanging from my shoulder. I don't know how to use it. And you walk around and you bump yourself into the corner because you want to bring it back to life and it just doesn't happen. Well, after this conversation, hopefully you won't have to worry anymore because Dr. Darren Green is here to talk to us about, as I said, quite a sensational topic.
I see what you did there now. While we start, head on over to Twitter. That's at Expresso Show. We're running a poll there. We're asking what part of your body is most sensitive to touch. There's a couple of answers for you to choose from, but we'll read out the results in a while, and Dr. Darren Green will give us the correct answer. Now, if you have any questions about touch or sensation, give us a call. That number is 021 430 9881. What's so funny?
I'm pretty sure the social media team came up with very creative options for those polls. But anyway, Dr. Darren, when your arm falls asleep, and what is actually happening to your body?
Yeah, well, you actually feel a bit of numbness. They call it a dead arm or a dead limb. And just like when you get an injection before a tooth is extracted, where you have no sensation, the pre-runner to that, obviously, is normally that tingling sensation or the numbness that starts moving in.
Yes.
And that is actually called paresthesia, which are pins and needles.
Oh,
but
so
what is, pins and needles. So paresthesia.
I get that often, yeah. So what exactly happens when you get pins and needles?
Yeah, so if you think, for example, if you're wearing a tight shoe around the ankle area or a boot and you're
trying to
in a
look
long
cute.
period of time, yes, you could have pressure from the side walls of your shoe, exerting pressure on a superficial nerve along the foot. Or if you're just sitting on the couch with your leg folded underneath you, that's the common one, you'll find it starts sleeping after a while. The most common one is with your hand under the pillow at night time, when your elbow is actually flexed under the pillow, and then you wake up 2 hours later with an arm that feels like a hanging piece of meat or dead jelly. And that's, of course, of the pressure on the nerve, which affects the blood supply to the nerve, and then it warns you by giving you those little, those pulses or those pins and needle sensations telling you that I need to change my position to readjust the blood flow to the nerve.
So if you experience pins and needles on a regular basis, could that be an indication of something more serious?
Indeed. So if you consider the neck, for example, the most common one is pins and needles going down into the arm.
Yes.
So if you perhaps have a disc which lies between the two vertebrae in the neck, or 8 vertebrae rather, 7 vertebrae, you can have pressure exerted on the nerve as it exits the spinal cord, which leads then to pins and needles or pain sensation going into the arms. If you have a prolapsed or a slipped disc, as people like to call it, a big central disc, you can have symptoms in both arms. So yeah, pressure on the nerves, that leads to things like paresthesia.
Okay, well, we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Darren Green. You've got another question, right?
Yeah, but I don't think we have time to ask it right now, so we'll ask it in our next segment, shall we?
Okay, well, if you've got a comment or a question regarding sensation or touch, do give us a call. Our number is 021 430 9881.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
All right, we're back with Dr. Darren Green once again, and our number 021 430 9881 is open for you to call us on this very touchy subject that we're talking about today.
Touchy indeed.
Yeah, it's all about sensation, sensitivity, pins and needles, and what it all means. We've also got a bit of a Twitter poll going.
That we do. So head on over to Twitter. That's at Expresso Show. We've popped up the question there for you. We're asking you what part of your body is most sensitive to touch. So do go and select the answer there that's most relevant to you. And Dr. Darren Green will give us the correct answer once we reveal the results.
While we were talking about pins and needles earlier on, I wanted to ask, what's the quickest way of getting rid of pins and needles? If your arm is dead, should you just leave it be, or should you be running against the corner of the door so that it kicks it back to life?
No. So put it back in the natural resting position. So if the posture that you had it in, like under the pillow, for example, straighten the arm, and you'll find within 2 minutes already, you would have restored sensation, blood flow. If you're sitting on your leg on the couch, the same thing. You stand up, you straighten your leg, and you allow the blood supply to the nerve to be re-established. And that fixes the problem.
Now, earlier in the ad break, you were throwing around big words like proprioception. What is that?
Proprioception is basically your brain knowing where your body parts are in space. So it involves the sensory feedback. In other words, signal is constantly fed back to the brain. So the brain always knows where your fingers, hands, toes, limbs are. A simple example is if I had to throw a ball to you right now, exactly, your brain has to calculate where your hand was
And where
to bring it to. Another simple example, if you give me your finger, is for me to say close your eyes and then move your finger up or down and say which way is the finger going now.
Okay.
And that's an example of proprioception, and it's a wonderful ability that we have. And without it, the coordination of movements and motor planning and sensory integration would be absolutely chaotic.
All right, let's quickly link up with Colleen, who's calling us all the way from Durban. Good morning, Colleen.
Good morning, doctor.
Thanks so much for the call. I wish I was a doctor. The doctor is here. You may ask him your question, Colleen. Go ahead.
My husband had a stroke about 8 months ago, and he lost feeling in his arm. Will that feeling ever come back?
Good question. So when you have a stroke, a part of the brain is deprived of oxygen for a certain period of time, whether the cause is a bleed or just a blockage in one of the blood vessels. So that part of the brain then has an infarct or dies. What we say in terms of rehab and regaining function, whether it be motor function or sensation, is that, you know, we used to, in old ways of thinking, think that 6 to 12 months, where you are after that, would be your norm for the rest of your life. And it's been proven that it isn't so. People still show what they call neuroplasticity. That's when the cells around the dead cells take on the function of that dead area of the brain and actually can regain some of its function.
Oh, wow.
So she mustn't give up on her husband and carry on with rehab. And years down the line, people still show significant improvement. We had a call about taste a few weeks ago saying that after 18 months, their taste returned. So.
Oh, wow. It's
Great
incredible
news.
how
It's
the
very
body
encouraging.
works.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And yeah, we're going to take a break quickly. When we come back, we'll be asking more questions of the good doctor. And of course, you're welcome to give us a call on 021 430 9881, including our Twitter poll. Which part of your body is most sensitive to touch? Let us know.
Only you can make my day. It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. We are live, large and in charge on your Feel Good Breakfast show. Listen, that line, don't touch me on my studio, I didn't realize was actually so pertinent because that man could have been trying to touch that man's very sensitive part in his body. You know, that's what happens. That's why we asked on Twitter right now, which part are you most sensitive on your body? Vote there and let us know. But we are taking calls as well, aren't we?
We are indeed. We have a caller from Cape Town. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Angela. What's your comment and question for Dr. Darren Green?
I just wanted to ask him, I've had most of my life very sensitive legs, but I've noticed as I've gotten older, it's gotten worse. When I say that, I mean they're very sensitive to touch, very painful, and sometimes if I press too hard, I actually just bruise.
Sure.
Is there anything I can do about that?
So I think the first thing is there are certain sensation syndromes where you have hypersensitivity. You know, one of them is called allodynia, ALLODYNIA, and that's when a simple pressure under the foot, for example, can be interpreted as something painful, like a piercing pin.
Wow.
The nerve endings are just basically hypersensitive. But she also mentions when she presses the skin that she bruises easily, and that obviously needs to be looked at in terms of, is there a platelet shortage that leads to bruising? When people bruise easily, we often look at the liver, we look at the blood components to see if all of them are in normal ratio to each other and that she doesn't have a disorder or bleeding disorder, for example. And there are associations between certain blood vessel problems and nerve problems. You can imagine the blood vessels bring oxygen-rich and nutrient-rich blood to the nerve. So one would certainly want to have that investigated, and she should start off by just basically seeing her GP first for an examination to look systemically at where the areas are that are involved, and then take it from there.
Okay. Well, Angela, I hope that helped. Thank you for your call. Our lines are open, 021 430 9881. Now, Dr. Darren Green, talking about amputations, I've heard of the phantom limb.
Yes.
What does that help with?
Yeah,
Notion.
well it's actually a very unpleasant sensation for the person that's had an amputation. So if you have had an above knee amputation, for example, the person experiences sensations or even pain from the distal part of the limb that isn't there anymore, and that's the word phantom, because it's not really there. There are different theories that we still don't know exactly why it's caused, but the postulated theory at this stage that's broadly accepted is that the sudden cut-off of proprioception, which is that sensory feedback mechanism to the brain, is cut off, allows the nervous system then to almost re-establish and reset its sensory profiling as it may. So what they're doing now is quite exciting, is they're looking at creating what's called a virtual reality for people that have had phantom limb pain. That means even although half your arm might be off, they create a virtual reality, almost like a game that you can put on, where you actually perceive your limb as still being there, and you participate and grab hold of a ball, even although the hand's not there. And because your brain interprets it as you having two hands while doing that task, you can actually trick the brain into remodeling that sensory feedback, which is quite... So there's exciting work being done on that field, from mirror therapy all the way through to virtual reality programming.
Astonishing stuff, and we'll carry on having our chat with Dr. Darren Green very shortly. Do give us a call on 021-430-9881, and I can't wait to reveal the results of our poll on Twitter at Expresso Show, where we asked you which part of your body is most sensitive to touch.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
All right, Dr. Darren Green still on the hot seat, and we're talking about a subject that might have rubbed you up the right way or the wrong way. It's all about touch and sensitivity, and we're asking you to give us a call on 021-430-9881.
Yes, well, can we go straight to the Twitter poll results?
Let's go right ahead.
Dr. Darren Green, the things we asked on Twitter is what's most sensitive part to your body, between fingertips, lips and armpits. Lips leading by 42%, armpits 40%, and the voters said fingertips 18%.
Is that true? Are lips the most sensitive part of the human body?
When it comes to light touch, they certainly are. Lips are like very, very, very... It's all about the concentration of sensory receptors. In other words, the playing field of how many cells there are there to actually perceive light pressure and touch. And obviously the fingertips being also needing that. But, you have to... there isn't a definitive, easy answer to that. It depends on what type of sensation. Certain areas are better at picking up hot and cold. Others are very good at, stating the obvious, things like vibration sense, for example.
Right.
So without stating the obvious, I mean, with eroticism and sexual health, certain areas also have to be blessed with great sensation to ensure healthy sexual lives, for example. And that's the end of that.
All right.
Okay. Well,
Mike, Mike's on the line, all the way from Durban. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning to you. How are you, Doctor?
Very, very well, thank you. Dr. Darren is waiting for your
I've
question.
got a question for you. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. I've had 3 ops on my leg due to bad circulation. After the 3rd op, I developed drop foot.
Yes.
And since then, I've done an MRI, and now they've realized I've got a bulging disc. But does this have anything to do with drop foot? I'm sort of paralyzed from the knee down now. Is there any possibility of this leg ever coming right?
Great question. So a drop...
I can't walk without a brace, or so I'm just a bit worried about losing my leg. It's a very bad situation at the moment.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Mike. We really do appreciate it, Dr. Green.
Yeah, so the issue is a drop foot means the peroneal nerve, which is a nerve that runs basically on the outer aspect of the leg. It could be affected. He mentions a blood vessel supply issue, a vascular issue being the main problem that he needed surgery on here. Obviously, that nerve is damaged. The reversibility of the condition would depend on what kind of nerve damage he has. You have different causes of drop foot from, for example, the nerve itself has a sheath around it, a jelly layer called the myelin sheath. There are certain conditions, medical conditions, that affect that jelly layer, the insulating wire. For example, there are other conditions that affect the blood vessels that are chronic. Then the blood supply, like diabetes, for example, can also affect it. And then you have local pressure mechanics, where the nerve itself could have been damaged from long-standing pressure on that area, or even in the surgery itself with scar tissue. So he would look at preserving his function as best possible by wearing a splint and keeping his ankle and his foot in the neutral position instead of it dropping down. Otherwise, he'll have shortening of the Achilles tendon and complications later on.
Okay, well, Mike, thank you for calling us and for sharing your story with us. I have so many more questions, but unfortunately, we're out of time.
Okay, so if you're not ticklish, does it really mean jy's uitgevry?
Yeah, they have a point, if you think about where those sensory receptors are.
Okay, guys.
I'm not okay with that answer.
Thank you.